This is the College Prep English class at EIE, and let's share the screen. And we are off and going. If I can figure out.
Try maximizing then minimizing again.
Yeah.
Usually gets to work.
Here, you see right next to the
This one here?
yeah.
The maximize then.
Right. Well, perhaps not. It takes a little while for these things to wake up.
Try
The
pressing maximize.
the maximize, yeah.
Maximize this one?
Yeah.
And then just minimize it really quick.
Nope, that minimized. I shouldn't have minimized, should I?
Oh,
There we go. There we go. That's fine. Sort of oddly off-centered here. Okay, now it's where it ought to be. Takes a little while for things to come up. All right, let's look at our agenda. Let's, in perspective, what we've been doing is one major project, that is the Shakespeare we're jumping into. We're doing the second week now of Romeo and Juliet, having done Macbeth previously. But also we have a number of other little projects in here that have been mentioned, some of which we've sort of skipped over and not bothered even to address. And let's just look at those and think about them. I presented a debate topic or two that I thought would be worth considering, which I'm perfectly willing to jettison if something else more interesting takes its place. But let's look at our agenda. I'm trying to make sure that all of, and none of you folks here have been using the online feed during class. I know Jack has, but I was just wondering which one of these methods is the best for reaching it, but asking you isn't going to help with anything. Okay, our agenda. Debate. Had this on the agenda for last week and we never got to it. Was student use of TV, media, games should be rationed to encourage serious study. That's the proposition. Let's just very quickly, is this a good proposition?
I would say so.
I looked into it. I actually gathered a few notes about it, but then I realized the notes I gathered probably wouldn't be the best for this topic. But yeah.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on one direction or the other?
Like in that case, in our house, that's what we do. Like we usually just play on the weekends. We don't watch that much TV unless it's like football with our dad and our family, or some other TV show that our parents watch. We'll watch with them.
Oh, Romeo and Juliet, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, this is really the question. I think it's a really bad proposition. Simply because what does it mean to be watching TV?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same as saying, I don't want you reading any book with a red cover, but it's okay to read books with a green cover. When you say, don't watch TV, but read books. You see what I mean? Because anything can come in.
That's the point to bring up. TV, many people would believe that TV is very destructive. It won't help you at all. All you do is you could have been studying when doing that. But you also have to remember that there are plenty of documentaries. Like my dad and I, we love watching nature documentaries. I like watching documentaries about the brain or anything related to science. So it can be used in good ways.
Indeed. It can be used in wonderful ways. The criticism that it's passive, that you're not directly interacting with it, may have some validity, but how much interaction do you have with a book anyway? Except for the fact that you can skim and you can reread. You see what I mean? Which can, to some extent, also be done with other media. I think there's so much more to the visual audio media than there is to the to reading a book.
Yeah, my dad, our whole family, we all love watching a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in my dad's sense, a lot of times when there's a movie that's based off the book, my dad say, well, you could read the book, but you should always watch the movie as well, because the movie can bring more depth into a book than it can, because you're visually seeing it. You're hearing someone speak is better than just picturing it.
Very often, and of course, when it comes to Shakespeare,
Especially, yeah, that's what my dad's
reading it on
especially
a
Shakespeare.
page is silly. That's not the way it was ever
It was
intended
designed to be
appreciated.
watched. That's exactly what my dad says. My mom's the other way. She would say, "Oh, you need to know, you need to read Romeo and Juliet." But then our dad, on the other hand, would say, "No, but the plays, it's a play. It's designed to be watched."
Indeed. Now, there are books that aren't. In fact, there are wonderful books that go on for pages and chapters with nothing but description and no dialogue at all. And they paint a wonderful, often psychological, very moving picture of what's taking place. And there are wonderful things that can be done that way too. Narration, however, is something that can also be done verbally. So,
And even in video games too, that's why I decided it wouldn't be best for my debate, the research I made. But they proved that video games can actually, if you play it, as long as you don't play it obsessively, it can actually help you. Playing a strategy game improves your critical thinking skills in your brain. And playing games that require quick thinking often improves your vision.
and hand-eye coordination. Too.
Yeah,
This
and eye
is
coordination,
something
motor reflexes, everything.
Yeah.
So it's all in moderation, though.
A good point. Let me make the counterpoint. Perhaps immoderation is sometimes called for. If, for example, and I've gone through this and realized that I'm glad to have done so, but I'm also glad to have gone beyond it, perhaps. And that is a state of being utterly obsessed with, in this case, programming logic and working on programs with such a fervor that one can find oneself looking up and discovering it's daylight, but not knowing what day it is. Now, this can be, I think, a valuable experience. It's not a healthy state to live in, but it can be a valuable experience and something one can look back on and draw from, and something from which one can gain a good deal of insight and skill. What do you think about that? In other words, is it possible that the immoderate may in fact be indicated under certain circumstances?
That is a very good point. For example, if you were to play video games for like days straight, then you could even draw an experience from that, saying, wow, I should not do this anymore. And then you would actually gain experience and improve upon that.
Right. One can draw experience from a lot of different things, though, of course, we're all aware that obsession can be very dangerous, especially when it becomes
even, for example, water. If you drink too much water, it's bad for your body. So anything that's good, too much of it is always bad.
Right. Okay. Now, speaking of documentaries, I gave you this one here, and I hope you got a chance to watch it.
I'm still going through it right now, but I think it's very fascinating.
I didn't expect you to get through the whole thing, and in fact, the later parts of it I find they're a little bit harder to appreciate. He ends up talking with people who have undergone various kinds of neural damage in their brains and determining in what way they are hampered by that damage. That's peculiar and interesting to him, I'm sure, but not nearly as interesting as the beginning part, in which he's talking about the way children acquire language and how they acquire it at such an incredible pace. I remember when my daughter started with words and would say, okay, let's write them down. And then within a week, we were flooded. We couldn't keep up with her. It just happens that easily.
Yeah, I remember one day my little sister, she said my name. Said, "You said my name." They said yes. So they learn really quick.
And there is also the question of whether one really loses the ability to acquire language at that speed as one grows up. Certainly, in most cases, it seems to be the case that we can't sit down comfortably and learn another language in a matter of a few months, the way a 1-2-year-old picks up language. But there are people who have disabused us of that misconception.
Yeah. What's the word? Polyglot?
Polyglot?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just watching this video about this teenager who can speak 20 languages.
Indeed, and there's a fellow on YouTube. It'd be worth watching him. He's made a point of learning dozens of languages and does presentations in them all, and very, very effectively, and explains how he acquired them.
Yeah.
Not by studying grammar. He
didn't do that either.
Languages by studying
that's
grammar.
exactly what the guy learned from the textbooks. In fact, that's about the worst way to learn. He learns it by what he would do is he would immerse himself in it. So everything he watches on TV or on his computer, or even if he's watching a movie, he'll try to add subtitles or the audio, change the language in it. So he just watches. By watching these people move their hands and interact with each other, he can basically learn the structure of the language through that. He said that's the best way to learn. He said just reading a textbook and learning all the vocabulary won't help at all. You have to watch people speak the language.
Yes, it doesn't hurt to look at vocabulary. In fact, vocabulary is one of the parts that's worth having a book for, I think. But in order to gain
learn the structure,
intrinsic understanding and feel for expressing oneself in the language, what this young man said was he spent the day doing things like looking vocabulary, very little grammar, and spent the evening, he worked as an au pair, just taking care of kids, talking with children who have just recently really acquired that skill in the language. He found it very easy to pick it up and did so very effectively. His presentations in other languages are very so it's interesting. I would love to try to do more of that kind of language learning here at EIE, if I could find people interested in doing it. Okay, so we have language immersion and the reason I call it language immersion, of course, is that Jonathan Miller uses language absolutely flawlessly. And it's hard to know whether his presentations, you'll notice he's standing or sitting or simply talking to the camera in various ways, whether it is pre-scripted or not. In fact, when he is participating in an interview, his language is similarly flawless. There's no way to tell the difference between his improvisatory speech and scripted speech. And so this is the kind of person you want to listen to. This is the kind of person from whom you're really going to acquire an intuitive, intrinsic mastery of language. And so let's spend some time looking at his material. He's done a few other things that I think would be worthwhile. But as I suggested also here under please be prepared to recite original work, reading assignment material, a Shakespeare scene. The suggestion was made to try listening to Jonathan Miller first, then practicing recitation. And in other words, get it in your ear. I remember coming back to the dorm once after watching a performance of Twelfth Night, and just the sound of the language as presented by people who understood it so thoroughly really rings in your head, rings in your language centers, so to speak. And one can pick up a language very rapidly by hearing it that way and participating in it. And so that's why I put it on again if you haven't listened to the whole thing, or if you have, just listen to it over and over again. I will find other speakers similarly equipped, please help me do so, however, because I have difficulty finding people who do as well as Miller and whose language is generally acceptable. There are some others who are going to drift off into subject matter that's offensive, or indeed profanity that's offensive. And I can count on Miller not to do that. But see if you can find some others, okay? If you
Yeah, I'll definitely tell you if I find one.
Yeah, if you tour around on the internet and find people who really do express themselves well. Okay, let's go on to look at Romeo and Juliet. And you have all seen have you had a chance to see one?
No.
Okay, it's really worth seeing. This is what we need to do. This one is a fairly recent one. It's a 2013 one, the one that this is an illustration for. And I talked about that one. I'm not sure I would recommend it, just because it doesn't value the language enough. He rewrites the words. And I have trouble with the whole concept of rewriting Shakespeare's words to make them more acceptable. The cinematography, however, is fascinating, so that's worthwhile. The one on the 76 one, I recommend that one simply because it's totally faithful to the book. Every word is there, and it's reasonably presented. It's hard to improve upon the Zeffirelli version, because indeed I think he very effectively chose the best parts and did them so well. But there is beauty to some of the parts that were omitted as well. Okay, so those are three big ones. You'll find a lot of others sitting around, going back to black and white ancient films. Now, we already went through all of these, not all of them. We went up to here. And so I thought we might finish that one off, but I thought perhaps we could go back a little bit, and now that you are more familiar with the book or with the play than you were last week, whether we can very quickly identify some of these that we discussed already. Not having that which having makes them short. Who says that to whom and under what circumstances?
Isn't this Mercutio?
Yep,
Or is it? I was thinking
Lawrence.
for Benvolio.
Oh, it's him. Wait.
No, actually, it's Romeo, but he's speaking to Benvolio.
Oh.
Right.
Oh,
Okay, what's going on here? Benvolio has been sent by Montague and Lady Montague to
see
try
why.
to glean what afflicts him.
figure out
To
why
use-
he's so sad.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. This is in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he's speaking of
this jumps around all over the place. And
of
so
Rosalind.
the question Benvolio poses there is, what sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? And this is his response: not having that which having makes them short. It's very it's very sort of enigmatic and unresponsive. And what's happening there with Romeo? He's sitting around in a darkened room all day and moping. This is a pretty typical teenager thing to do. And his parents are trying to figure out what's going on with him. Okay. This is an interesting one. All are punished. And it's interesting that because punished is spelled differently in different versions, sometimes with an apostrophe D, sometimes with an ED, which would seem to imply that it would be pronounced with that extra syllable. All are punished. Who says that?
The prince.
Prince at the ending.
Right. Montague and Capulet, see what a scourge is laid upon thy hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I
I
for
too,
winking,
for
I
winking
too.
at your discord.
We
Have
get to
lost,
discard-
have lost, brace of
brace of
kinsmen.
kinsmen.
Good
Yes.
for you. Good for you. Which, of course, makes no sense in the Zeffirelli version, in which
Yeah.
they cut out Paris's demise altogether. but yes, very good for you. Okay, you've got this down very nicely. This distilling liquor drink thou of?
Oh, that's Friar
Friar
Lawrence
Friar
speaking
Lawrence,
to
right.
Juliet about the vial or the
Strong and prosperous in this resolve. Yes, we're going to look at more of that as we go on. Trespass sweetly urged. Okay. No. This is such a clever line when Romeo is talking to Juliet at the party. And then he kisses her, and thus from my lips by thine, my sin is purged. To which he responds, then have my lips the sin they have took. And so he takes that as an invitation. Trespass
you're right.
You're right. Again,
give me my sin
give
again.
Me
Yeah,
my sin
right.
again.
That's right.
Exactly. Very, very, very clever little thing. And then, of course, you know all of these. Are any of these confusing at all? Run through the ear with a love song.
That's what Mercutio's saying.
Mercutio's saying about
right.
Romeo.
About Romeo's.
Now, there are a good deal of Mercutio's railing there against Tybalt has been cut out. Clearly, Mercutio doesn't like Tybalt. In fact, he disdains Tybalt and his foppish manner, and yet he regards him with a good deal of deference when it comes to his swordsmanship. Okay. All right, let's go on to new ones. I'm assuming you've figured all of these out. Each one of these is such a wonderful little phrase that's found its way in many cases into the English language in various forms. A brace of kinsmen, you just defined that one. A mutiny among my guests.
That's what
the
Capulet's responds to Tybalt.
Tybalt, yeah, who's telling him, but there is Montague here, so he says, well, you would make a mutiny among my guests, saying don't do anything, pay him no heed.
Right. And in fact, Capulet at this point seems to be such a rational and considerate person. He doesn't take into account the longer potential of this encounter, and he doesn't apparently anticipate Tybalt's response to it, which indeed he knows is going to be disastrous for himself. Tybalt goes out there and kills somebody the next day, because both he and Montague have been threatened with death if the civil brawl takes place again. So he doesn't anticipate that necessarily. But also he seems like such a reasonable person when he just talks about Romeo as being a well-governed youth. Verona brags of him as a well-governed youth. I would not for all the wealth in Verona here in my house do in disparagement. A wonderful line. What happens to him when he turns around and ends up completely taking a different approach to the world when he forces the marriage upon Juliet? His initial response to Paris was woo her, win her heart. Well, that's a pretty wise thing to do. When did he abandon that idea?
After she refused.
When she
refused. He didn't even bother to ask her, did he?
No, that's a good point.
No, and yet he felt initially that was the most important thing. My consent to her love is but a part. That's what he says initially, and then he turns around. It looks as though, in a way, he is too anxious for progeny. He really wants to have his line continue. And she is all he has left. He makes that very clear. The world has swallowed all my hopes but she, which is ungrammatical, as you all know. But Shakespeare strayed from the grammatical on a number of occasions. What should it have been? The world has swallowed all my hopes but her.
Yeah.
she is not the appropriate case. But you'll find this happens a number of times, and in As You Like It, you've got several of those.
Oh, I assume that like back then it wasn't considered ungrammatical.
Well, it's not that it wasn't considered ungrammatical. Nobody had defined what grammatical meant. And you have a lot of interesting things like that taking place. Okay, Prince of Cats. We all know who Prince of Cats is and who the Supreme Cox is. In fact, they're the same person. And a challenge on my life. The forefinger of an alderman. Who says that?
Is it Friar Lawrence?
No, it's Mercutio, and he's going on about Queen Mab.
Oh,
and
yeah.
talks about the
that
topaz, forefinger alderman. Okay, and take back the villain that late thou gavest me.
So Romeo talking to Tybalt.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, misadventures, piteous overthrows. Where do we come across that wonderful line?
Isn't that the prince? Or
No.
It's not the prince,
Oh.
although the character who speaks this, his lines are often given to the prince.
Paris? No.
The chorus, the narrator.
Oh.
So two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge spring to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, two star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured, piteous overthrows do with their deaths bury their parents' strife. So we know at the beginning, from the outset, and of course it's that portent is reawakened over and over again through the play. Romeo has a dream. Romeo feels this
consequence yet hanging in the stars.
Good for you. Go ahead and do the rest of them.
Oh.
For I fear too early, some consequence yet hanging in the stars shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night's revels, and expire the term of a despised life closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death. But he that hath the steerage of my course direct my sail on, lusty gentlemen. In other words, I know it's going to end in horror, but no, let's go for it. He that hath the steerage of my course direct my sail. Okay, let's see. Drawn and talk of peace.
It's about a Friar Lawrence speaking to Romeo after he killed Tybalt.
This is an important important one.
Is it Romeo?
No.
Or is it? Oh. So then in that case, it's either Mercutio.
No.
Tybalt.
This is Tybalt.
Yeah. So this is during the feud right there.
At the very beginning.
At the very beginning, yeah.
At the very beginning, yes. Tybalt has come onto the scene, and he's all for causing trouble. And Benvolio is doing his best to try to calm things down and prevent it from happening. But he has his sword out.
Yeah, so that's why he's saying drawn, but
drawn.
You talk of peace, but yet you've drawn the sword.
Yes. And says, put your sword away or use it with me to part these fellows. Okay, very good. Another out to have. Okay, we're talking about putting one love in a grave, another out to have. It's Friar Lawrence to Romeo. Friar Lawrence has already cautioned Romeo and tried to advise him to love moderately, as he says later.
All love or long love.
Or violent beginnings.
Right, lead to violent ends, which like fire and powder, which when they kiss consume. But he's heard all about Rosalind already, and he is concerned there and he's advised Romeo to, he has chid Romeo, and that's the word, in fact, that Romeo uses for it, for loving, though Romeo says he's been chid for loving. Friar Lawrence corrects that and says, no, for doting, pupil mine, right? So he says, it's not for loving that I'm chiding you, it's for doting. And indeed, there's a distinction. Okay, so you bade me bury love? Yes, but not to bury it in a grave, another out to have. Okay. Nor any other part belonging to a man.
That's Juliet on the balcony. She goes, what is the Montague? It's nor hand, nor foot, nor, yes,
nor any other
part belonging to a man.
Very good.
And then she goes off saying that, well, compared to a rose, if it's called a rose, if it isn't called a rose, it still retains the sweetness. Yeah, the sweet Aswood Romeo. So doff thy name, take me.
Very good, very good. You've really got most of it down. Excellent. And for that name that is no part of thee, take all myself, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. There rust and let me die.
I'm trying to figure out whether is it when Romeo after he kills Tybalt is when
No.
Or it might be Juliet. Is it Juliet when she sees Friar Lawrence?
Juliet to herself.
Or not, oh, it's to herself.
Yeah, Juliet in
I was gonna say it's to the nurse.
Right. So it's oh happy dagger, here is thy sheath. There
thy rust and die.
Yes. And again, we talked about that happy dagger.
Yes, and it's not joyful, more of happenstance.
Exactly. Very good. Come, madam, let's away.
And is that what Friar Lawrence said to Juliet?
Isn't that
Juliet
actually wakes up and says, come away from this place?
It would make perfect sense for him to say
sleep.
it there, but I don't think he does. This is Montague, to Lady Montague, having sent Benvolio to glean what afflicts Romeo, a phrase which I rather like.
Right,
that's actually from Hamlet. But,
yeah, come on, let's away. And then they run away and then...
much upon those years that thou art yet a maid. This is rather revealing line.
Oh, this is, isn't that the nurse? The nurse speaking to Lady Capulet.
It's not the nurse speaking, though. It's Lady Capulet.
Oh, it's Lady Capulet.
Speaking to Juliet.
Right.
About the marriage.
I was your mother, much upon these years that thou art yet a maid. She's telling Juliet that she was already, that she had already had
married
Juliet when she was 13. Which means that Lady Capulet is around 26. That's what she said, that irresponsible, you've got that. But one wonders why. After all, Lady Capulet is only 26. Why would he not be having more children? Hard to know. And I think you can ask too many of that kind of question and go round and round in a circle. Okay, he jested scars that never felt a wound.
Is that what Mercutio was saying about Romeo when they realized that that Tybalt sent him a letter?
No. This is after
the okay.
Yeah, this is when they're going after him. Yeah.
Right. Romeo has given them the slip, and this is exactly what the way Mercutio describes it. Romeo doesn't want to be found, and then Mercutio is calling after him.
Yeah.
And trying to rile him up, and in fact, he's invoking him with reference to and describing parts of Rosalind, in fact, and hoping that this is going to cause Romeo to react or respond. But indeed, that does not that is not the effect it has upon Romeo. He just sets scars that never felt a wound. He is not at all touched by reference to Rosalind at that point in his life. Okay, scorn at our solemnity. What does solemnity mean?
Oh, it means like
It's
Peace.
solemnity.
a
It's like the purpose, or I'm trying to think of the word. I know the word is on. I just can't
The
think
flow.
of like the best way.
Right. I
No,
can't really think
It's
Isn't it
actually
party?
our
Gathering.
joyfulness, our celebration.
okay.
And it
It's
sounds as though it should be connected to solemn, which sounds like the opposite of exultation and celebration, but indeed it's.
So
it's
this is
celebration.
what Lord Capulet says to Tybalt. Like,
Tybalt
It's what
saying.
Tybalt
Tybalt
says.
says, yeah,
Lord
how he
Capulet.
scorns it all, yeah.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
Capulet.
Right. You're right.
Right. So when Tybalt has seen and recognized Romeo, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean, you know what I mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Verona brags of him.
That's what
Lord, that's
Lord
what Capulet was
about
saying
Romeo.
to about Romeo to Tybalt.
Exactly. What say you to my suit?
That's what County Paris was saying to Capulet,
Exactly.
asking
exactly.
for Juliet's
Indeed.
hand in marriage.
He is enamored of Juliet, and honestly, earnestly so. They stumble who run fast.
Is that Friar Lawrence?
It's Friar Lawrence.
It sounded like
It's
something
that
he
kind
would
of
say.
aphorism that he would say.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. When he's telling them to take their time, they're about to be married. And for that name that is no part of thee, take on myself. We
I
covered
take
that
thee
one.
at thy word, call me with love, and I will be new baptized. Henceforth I will no longer be called Romeo.
I never will be Romeo.
Yeah, I never
Excellent.
will be Romeo.
Very, very nicely done. Very nicely. It's easy really to memorize this kind of thing without even trying.
Yeah.
If one hears it spoken so well and just hear it a few times, it sticks in your mind.
I mean, I've only read that part like once or twice and watched it
Uh-huh.
once.
But there's such you think about the character of Juliet. The character of Juliet is really quite fascinating because she has more on her, more fate on her head than anybody else in the whole thing, and more major decisions to make. This poor 13-year-old, and she also expresses herself so incredibly. And I mean, how can you believe that a 13-year-old can say, I have not yet drunk 100 words of that tongue's utterance, and yet I know the sound. I mean, such wonderful things like that. Okay, so take on myself. I have forgot that name, and that name's woe.
Romeo talking
Romeo
to
talking
Friar
about
Lawrence.
About Rosaline.
About
Yeah.
Rosaline, exactly.
Was
God
that with
pardon
Rosaline
sin,
tonight?
wast
Oh,
thou
yeah.
with Rosaline? Yes. Okay. I remember well where I should be.
That's Juliet,
Juliet
when she wakes
wakes
talking
up.
to Friar Lawrence. Where's my lord?
Exactly.
I remember where I'm
She
supposed to be, but
wakes up
where's?
in the tomb. And the tomb, of course, in all of these interpretations is such a it seems like just such a pleasant place, but that tomb would be so full of coffin flies. But I mean, we don't see that part of it. We hear it referred to, however, and I want to take that part. Okay, churl, drunk all and left no kindly drop to help me.
Very well. Well, then I'll make this quick. Oh, happy dagger.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
Churl, of course, is an ill-mannered person, a varlet, a churl. It's a wonderful word. If you must insult somebody, insult them with a word they haven't heard before. Insult them with a good one. Put that in your vocabulary. Okay. For stony limits cannot hold love out.
With love's like wings, I
Almost, yes. For stony limits cannot hold love out.
What love can do,
That dares love
that dares
attempt.
love attempt. Yeah.
Therefore, the kinsmen are no stop to me. Yes. Excellent. Okay, so we did a number of scenes last week. Let's find where we left off. We left off, I believe, at Friar Lawrence's cell.
Yeah, that was the one we had left. Was
Yeah,
that was my favorite line that he said. This one right here.
Okay, this is much further on.
Right there. Oh, wait, no.
Well, this is later. This is after their night. This is an amazing scene there. Okay, here's their waking, but that's after Romeo has gone to them. Okay.
Oh, right.
Here it is. Is that where we left off? Exactly?
Yeah. Watching you go up and say we left off here.
Right. And Friar Lawrence has really made a good case there for himself. He's responded to Romeo is absolutely distraught and despondent and doesn't have any idea what direction to go in. He's really not nearly as mature as Juliet is under very similar circumstances. She knows exactly what she's doing and bears an immense burden. But Romeo here has just fallen to pieces, and
he almost killed himself
right there. Yeah, or exactly what Friar Lawrence says. Thy tears are womanish.
My name reside that I may sack the. Well, where is it? Up in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does this wonderful thing about there art thou happy. Thou slewest Tybalt, he would kill thee. There art thou happy too. The law that threatened death becomes thy friend. It turns it to exile. There art thou happy. A pack of blessings lights on thy back. Okay, very good point when you think about it.
Yeah.
Everything has gone rather nicely for Romeo.
No, he wasn't executed. Just exiled.
But just the fact that Tybalt, because he was supposed to be a very fine swordsman,
exactly, and
wasn't able to kill
him, yeah.
Romeo.
Romeo is apparently a very fine swordsman too, and dispatches Paris with little difficulty, and without a will to do so either, which is interesting. So this is the response that Friar Lawrence comes up with, and note the nurses there, and note what her response is. Go get thee to
what learning is, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she says, what learning is.
What learning is.
Right, exactly. Does somebody want to do this one?
Sure.
By the way, I did ask you to come with some sort
I was
of
going to
recitation
recite the
prepared.
whole.
What have you got?
I was going to recite this whole part.
This whole part.
Yeah,
Okay,
starting from
let's go
what
back.
Friar Lawrence says.
There's an awful lot of it here, and I don't think I've taken all of it. There's more of it there. All right. Romeo is about to kill himself, and Friar Lawrence intercedes, and go ahead.
Hold thy desperate hand. Art thou a man? Thy form cries out thou art. Thy tears are womanish. Thy wild acts denote the unreasonable fury of the beast, unseemingly woman and a seeming man. Or ill-beseeming beast and seeming both. Thou hast amazed me by my holy order. I thought thy disposition better tempered. Hast thou slain Tybalt? Wilt thou slay thyself, and slay thy lady too, that lives in thee, by doing damned hate upon thyself? Why railest thou on thy birth, the heaven and the earth, since birth and heaven and earth all three do meet, in thee at once, which thou at once wouldst lose? Fie, thou shamest thy shape, thy love thy wit, which like a usurer, abounds in all, and usest none in that true use indeed, which should bedeck thy shape, thy love, thy wit. Thy noble shape is but a form of wax, digressing from the valor of a man. Thy dear love sworn, but hollow perjury, killing that love which thou hast vowed to cherish. Thy wit, that ornament shaped to shape and love, misshapen in the conduct of them both, like powder in a skillless soldier's flask, is set afire by thine own ignorance. And thou dismembered with thine own defense, what roused thee, man? Thy Juliet is alive, for whose dear sake thou wast but lately dead. Therefore art thou happy. Tybalt would kill thee, but thou slewest Tybalt. There art thou happy too. The law, who threatened death, becomes thy friend, and turns into exile. There art thou happy. A pack of blessings lights upon thy back. Go, get thee to thy love, as was decreed. Ascend her chamber, hence, and comfort her. But look, thou stay not till the watch be set, for then thou canst not pass to Mantua. where thou shalt live till we can find the time to blaze your marriage, reconcile you friends. Beg pardon to the prince and call thee back. Then thou wentst forth in lamentation. Go before nurse, commend me to thy lady, and bid her hasten all the house to bed, which heavy sorrow makes them apt unto. Romeo is coming.
Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Now, when doing that, you did skip a line here.
I did?
Towards the end, yeah. Actually, with 100,000 times more joy.
I thought when I was saying, I was like, did I miss something? I was like, oh.
Then thou wentest forth in lamentation. What you're doing is fine, and it has to be thought of as lines of a specific length, because the meter is strict. Otherwise, it wouldn't have arbitrarily made the lines the length they are. Now, it doesn't always fit pentameter particularly well, but also see if you can think about the meaning of what's going on there. You're pronouncing it very nicely, and coming at one point here, for example, he is. What did I do? He's arguing. He's trying to make a strong point. And so the law that's threatened thy death becomes thy friend, and turned it to exile. There art thou happy. A pack of blessings lights upon thy back. Shift, pause, there's a little break there. Go, get thee to thy love as was decreed. Ascend her chamber, hence, and comfort her. But look, thou stayest not till the watch be set, for then thou canst not pass to Mantua, where thou shalt live till we can find a time to blaze thy marriage, to reconcile thy friends. You see, it's a very different kind of feel at that point, a very different point he's trying to make. Okay, and indeed, he makes somewhat sense that the nurse responds, "Oh Lord, I could have stayed here all night to hear good counsel. Oh, what learning is. My Lord, I'll tell my lady you will come. Do so, and bid my sweet prepare to chide." Indeed, Romeo has deserved to be chid. Okay. Now, this scene, of course, is the text makes it fairly clear what's going on, and in the original story, there is mention of creating a rope ladder so that he can get up to the balcony. Well, we've already demonstrated that in most of these versions. There's a tree or something there anyway, so they cut the rope ladder out. But it's very clear that Romeo and Juliet has spent the night. Wilt thou be gone? It is not yet your day. And then they have this bit about the nightingale of the lark, the lark, the nightingale, which sings at night. Okay, and then it's the lark, the herald of the morn, no nightingale. Look, love, what envious streaks, and there's beautiful poetry here. Night's candles are burnt out, and jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain tops. Must be gone and live, or stay and die. What an amazing line there. Okay, what is jocund? What is jocundity? You got your dictionaries handy. You've been looking these things up. That's what the vocabulary journal is for. I realize you posted something in there, but you probably should have a list of 16 words.
A lot of times I forget to do it.
I just thought in my head on the way, I was like, about that vocabulary journal, I should really put those words that I've been looking up so far.
That's what it's there for.
A lot of times I forget because I usually, when I'm looking up a word, I usually just use the normal dictionary because I'm usually just like reading the book or something that's not on the computer, so I don't look it up. And if I don't look it up on the computer, I forget to put it in the vocabulary journal.
Right. This is something that I've always gone through in previous classes, and I should really go through with you. I did it last year, didn't I? If I choose this word, for example, and then I right-click, I have put together search dictionary, got a couple of dictionaries, Wikipedia. This is a little plug-in for Firefox, which is so useful. The only problem with it is it only gives you 6 different choices. I need a couple of dozen for all the things I'd like to be able to do with it. But you can search many different resources online, and I'll show you how to put that together if you'd like. This makes it so much easier for putting your vocabulary journals together and for looking things up. As long as you're reading things on the screen, which indeed is what you're doing, then a simple right click and you've got your dictionary entry. And TFD is a very good one. It's not necessarily the best, the free dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
And because it also has a pretty decent thesaurus connected with it as well.
Yeah, they have one also called just dictionary.com. They have their own thesaurus.
Dictionary.com, I
But
found
that one,
when it's too commercial, let's go.
yeah, I said, but that one has
Yeah.
all kinds of advertising.
It's
Yeah.
slow. It's
Yeah.
like slow.
It's slower compared,
Free
probably
dictionary,
because
you
of
press
that.
enter.
Exactly, exactly. There are some other really good resources, StringNet and a couple of other things that I'll introduce you to that I think you'll find very useful. Okay, so Romeo has been persuaded that it is the herald of the morn. It is the lark and not the nightingale. And then we get another portent. O God, I have an ill-divining soul. Methinks I see thee now. Thou art below, as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails, or thou lookest pale. That's
When he's leaving,
he
it comes
is
down. She
going
goes,
down.
yeah,
Yes,
foreshadow.
exactly.
And so is that. That's also a foreshadow of the Lady Capulet.
Yeah, in my eye, so do you. Dry sorrow drinks our blood. Adieu, adieu. Okay. Okay, and then we have this contentious bit with Lady Capulet and Capulet and Capulet asks, what says she? And but she will. Have you talked? Have you told her of her upcoming nuptials? And I, sir, but she will have none. She gives you thanks, and I would the fool were married to her grave. If that isn't another portent. Okay, and then Capulet is just so adamant here, probably because he had just really committed to Paris.
Yeah.
That it would be Thursday. Wednesday's a little too soon. Make it Thursday. And that commitment, I think, he does not want to be forsworn. In fact, I think he says it there. What does it mean to be forsworn? To have to take back something.
Take back your word. Yeah, take back an oath. Or
I will not be forsworn. Means a lot to him. Unfortunately, he gets his priorities a bit screwed up there.
Yeah. I think you should have. This all could have been avoided if he would have asked Juliet first. What do you
Right.
think of Paris? Because then that way he didn't have to tell him, yes, you can marry her. And all right. And then Juliet refuses. So he says, I will not be forsworn. You know, that could have been avoided if he would have asked Juliet.
There's such a long list of if only.
If only.
Technically, the whole thing would have been
Only-
avoided if Capulet decided to kick Romeo out of the party. The whole thing would have been avoided.
Or
True.
yeah, but no.
Or-
But if you want to
or
keep the
if-
love, it would have been avoided if the priest just would have got there just a few minutes before.
Right.
Yeah, just like if he took off, you could say like 10 minutes before he actually took off.
And you
It
can't
could have
help
been
but
avoided.
wonder what could they have done if they were simply to come out in the open and say she's already married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably people would be pretty angry at that, but,
Yep.
But-
they can't undo it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, now here, this shows Juliet's resolve. She is quite a character. When you think about the character of Juliet, it's really quite remarkable. Would somebody like to do this one? Or shall I do it? This is where Juliet is explaining how she feels, that she is ready to commit suicide. She's just looking for some way around it and expecting perhaps that he can come up with something. Let's just look at it. Tell me not, friar, that thou hast heard of this, unless thou thou tell me how I may prevent it. If in thy wisdom thou canst give no help, do thou but call my resolution wise, and with this knife I'll help it presently. God joined my heart with Romeo's, thou our hands. And ere this hand by thee to Romeo sealed shall be the label to another deed, or my true heart with treacherous revolt turn to another, this shall slay them both. It's beautifully put. It's cut out of many versions, but it's really nicely done. Therefore, out of thy long experienced time, give me some present counsel, or behold, twixt my extremes and me, this bloody knight shall play the empire, arbitrating that which the commission of thy years and art here's the dart, could to no issue of true honor bring. Be not so long to speak, I long to die. If what thou speakst, speak not of remedy. In other words, if you can't come up with a solution to this,
I'm just going to kill myself.
Exactly. So Friar's in a bit of a pickle here. He doesn't bother to say, well, let's go and tell your parents that you're married.
Just a suggestion, maybe you should try the mouse wheel.
I fear that my page might be too long for that, but it's possible I could.
Yeah,
I could
that would going down. It's easier to.
I'm just afraid that it might go shooting by and I'd lose track.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that can happen. Or try the arrows up and down. Arrows would probably be easier than.
That I'm just hitting the arrow on the side there. So
yeah, I see.
Using this instead. Okay, so Friar Lawrence comes up with this idea. I mean, he's an alchemist. He's an herbalist, and has a thought. It's not very well thought through. But hold, daughter, I do spy a kind of hope, which craves as desperate an execution as that is desperate which we would prevent. If rather than marry County Paris, thou hast the strength of will to slay thyself, that it is likely thou wilt undertake a thing like death, to chide away this shame that copst with death himself to scrape from it. And if thou darest, I'll give thee remedy. Basically, he's saying, if you have that kind of courage, then maybe you're willing to do something. It's a lot to ask somebody to feign death and be interred in the monument. And the Juliet, what is her response?
She's saying like, yes, I'll do anything.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
She's ready. And here's the important thing. She's talking about things that are terribly grim and threnodial, if you'd like. It's a horrible contemplation, but she's ready to do it. Look at this. Oh, bid me leap, rather than marry Paris, from off the battlements of yonder tower, or walk in thievish ways, or bid me lurk where serpents are, chain me with roaring bears, or shut me nightly in a charnel house, or covered quite with dead men's rattling bones, with reeky shanks and yellow chapless skulls, where bid me go into a new-made grave, and hide me with a dead man in his shroud. Things that, to hear them told, have made me tremble, and I will do it without fear or doubt, to live an unstained wife to my sweet love. Think about the poignancy of these words. I mean, that's what Shakespeare is so good at, is coming up with words that conjure in your mind the most incredible things. And in this case, coming out of the mouth of a 13-year-old, it's quite remarkable. And then Friar comes up with this response. Who would like to do that one?
I guess I will. Hold then, go home, be merry, give consent to marry Paris. Wednesday is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, look that thou lie alone. Let not thy nurse lie with thee in thy chamber. Take thou this vial, being then in bed, and this distilled liquor drink thou of. when presently through all thy veins shall run a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep his native progress, but surcease. No warmth, no breath shall testify thou livest. In the meantime, against thou shalt awake, shall Romeo by my letters know our drift, and hither shall he come, and he and I will watch thy waking, and that very night shall Romeo bear thee hence to Mantua. And this shall free thee from this present shame, if no inconstant toy nor womanish fear abate thy valor in the acting it.
And then she responds, give me, tell me not of fear. She is ready to undertake. But she has doubts later on, doubts that aren't represented in many of the interpretations. She's got this vial, and she doesn't know. Maybe it's poison. She doesn't know. She's not absolutely sure that this friar, for fear of having to admit to doing something so underhanded as he has done in marrying them, might be afraid of repercussion and might be protecting himself by poisoning her. It goes through her mind.
And plus, back then, there wasn't much known on alchemy as there is now. So
indeed, the fact that he can be confident of what it's going to do to a human being, that is rather mysterious. Because after all, it's not as though they could have had a double-blind test or anything, or he could have
Must have been a really good must have been a really good alchemist, and probably like one of the first anesthesiologists.
Right. Okay. This shall forbid it. So she takes it. Alas, she's cold. Her blood is settled, her joints are stiff. Life and these lips have long been separated. Death lies on her like an untimely frost on the sweetest flower of all the field, accursed time. A fortunate old man. Well,
I always laugh when I see the ha, because it almost sounds like he's laughing. When it says ha, let me see her. It just sounds like he was like planning it or something.
I think that's a cultural thing.
It's just a cultural thing. That's
a lamentable day, a woeful time. Ties up my tongue and will not let me speak. If you've ever felt that kind of thing, you know exactly what he's talking about, despite the fact that he's able to say it. You see what I mean? Okay. Now, the part that is omitted here, of course, is which Friar Lawrence has Friar John sent off to take it to Mantua, take the letter to Mantua. And Friar John is waylaid with it's quarantine of some sort in the original story. There's very different ways that it happens. It's not terribly important, but he doesn't get there. Balthazar, on the other hand, who is Balthazar?
isn't it his like? Isn't it his? On that page,
yeah,
generally referred to as his man, his servant.
squire.
Yes.
Or would it be?
No, not squire.
No.
Not necessarily
Not
squire.
necessarily
Squire would be
servant.
a knight.
If you're a knight, yeah.
No.
Good point.
Is it servant? No.
So, and anyway, we have encountered Balthazar in minor ways, but he is Romeo's servant.
Oh.
And you can't help wondering what the motivation of these servants must be. We don't see that discussed, but what must the nurse be thinking when Juliet is going to be married? She has spent the last 13 years nursing this girl who's going to vanish. What's her future going to be? The same for Balthazar when he is helping his master to commit suicide, or expecting him to. What's going to become of him, who's been the servant to this person who's suddenly not going to be there anymore? Those things don't arise. The motivations of the servants really are not considered. Okay, so Balthazar is asked by Romeo, news from Verona, how now, Balthazar? Dost thou not bring me letters from the friar? How doth my lady? Is thy father well? How fares my Juliet? That I ask again, for nothing can be ill if she be well. And Balthazar is uncharacteristically laconic. He's not saying anything. Why? Well, he's reluctant to say what he's come to say, which is, then she is well and nothing can be ill. Her body sleeps in Capel's monument, and her immortal part with angels lives. I saw her laid low in her kindred's vault, and presently took post to tell it to you. Oh, pardon me for bringing these ill news, since you did leave it for my office. Okay, notice how news is plural there. Makes perfect sense that it should be. Is it and so? Is it even so? Then I defy you stars. This is probably one of the most important lines in all of the portents, because in that defiance, he is making it come about.
Yeah.
It's just really the crux of the whole thing right there. I defy you stars. Now we know the stars are what we're blaming this thing on. So consequence yet hanging in the stars. Okay, so then we go
kind of like that if you think about it, Macbeth at the same time, where in his defiance, for example, Romeo's defiance, he ends up completing his fate.
Right.
And in Macbeth, it's the same thing.
Right. Exactly. And Balthazar advises patience, advises circumspection, and he's afraid of what his master is going to do. Okay, now in between here we have this the scene that isn't always represented in any of the plays, in which Romeo goes and buys the poison. And he goes to an apothecary, and the apothecary's poor, and he basically bribes him to do that which is illegal, apparently, and that is to sell poison, and manages to acquire it. And then he comes to the tomb. Thou detestable maw, thou womb of death, gorged with the dearest morsel of the earth, thus I enforce thy rotten jaws to open. He's breaking open the door to the tomb, but a maw is a mouth, literally. So you talking about that which swallows people. He breaks open the door, and in despite I'll cram thee with more food. And then Paris comes along, and I rather like the Zeffirelli interpretation here, because I think Paris's presence there,
it's just kind of weird. I was just like kind of just. Well, I was reading through this, and I got surprised when I saw that part. I was thinking, oh wait, so Paris was like just like hanging around the cemetery.
Well, he is enamored of Juliet, there's no question, and he's come to pay his last respects, and is understandably suspicious of Romeo and Romeo's presence there. So I suppose all of it can be explained, but
I liked it better when it was just them.
Yeah, it really doesn't help the main flow of the plot very well. Stop, thou unhallowed toil, vile Montague. Can vengeance be pursued further than death? He thinks Romeo is there to defile a grave or something or other, being a Montague, and she a Capulet. Condemned villain, I do apprehend thee. Obey and go with me, for thou must die. Okay. And Romeo responds, I must indeed, and therefore came I hither. Good gentle youth, tempt not a desperate man. Fly hence and leave me. Think upon these gone. Let them affright thee, I beseech thee, youth. Put not another sin upon my head by urging me to fury. Oh, be gone. That is beautifully said, isn't it? Put not another sin upon my head. And then he, in the tomb, after having slain Paris, Death that hath sucked the honey of thy breath hath had no power upon thy beauty. Thou art not conquered. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there. Okay, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
We talked about the carrying the flag, the word escapes me.
The banner.
Advancing the banner, advancing, and death advancing the flag, of course, is the paleness. Okay, so then he turns to Tybalt, and I think this is really one of the nicest parts in it. Tybalt, liest thou there in thy bloody sheet? Oh, what more favor can I do to thee than with that hand that cut thy youth in twain, to sunder his that was thine enemy? Forgive me, cousin. Sunder, what is sunder?
Is it to like slay or?
Literally means apart. It's preposition most of the time to cleave something asunder, to break something apart.
Yeah, that's
but
what I
in
was
this
thinking.
case, it's become a verb. Shakespeare was very fond of taking one part of speech and making it into another part of speech. It's called antimeria. And there's a long list of words he's done that with. I'll unhair thy head, that sort of thing, in which you take a noun and make it a verb, take an adjective and make it a verb, and so forth. And indeed, we've got that here. To sunder his that was thine enemy, although that one is, of course, a verb. Here's to my love, and he drinks. So true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Let's just finish this off quickly. Juliet wakens, the friar is there. O comfortable friar, where is my lord? I do remember well where I should be, and there I am. Where's my Romeo? The friar, afraid because the watch is coming. Now, who calls the watch? I believe actually
Probably Paris.
In the book, it's in the original, it's Paris's servant.
Oh, yes.
And who doesn't even appear in any of the versions that I can think of.
I think there's a line like in there. It says like, go get the. It says go like call forth the guards or something, and then he goes to confront Romeo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure
he hears the noise. Lady, come from that nest of death, contagion, and unnatural sleep. A greater power than we can contradict hath thwarted our intents. Come away. And indeed, this is probably the line you were thinking of when we come, madam, let's away.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, he has seen Romeo dead. And then he leaves. What's here? A cup close to my true love's hand. Juliet finds the vial of poison.
It is him.
Poison, I see, hath been his timeless end. Oh, churl! Interesting. Remember that one. It's a nice insult. Oh, churl, drunk all, and left no friendly drop to help me after. I kissed thy lips. Haply. Notice haply, as in happy dagger, same concept of happenstance, providence, if you like. Haply some poison doth hang on them to make me die with restorative. She kisses him. My lips are warm. Okay. Yea, noise, then I'll be brief, O happy dagger, snatches Romeo's dagger. Here is thy sheath, there rest, and let me die. Now, in some versions, it's rust. In some of them, it's rest.
Okay, that's what confused.
That makes a little more
later when
sense.
he said
Rest,
rust,
she's saying this is your
sheath,
sheath, and then saying just rest there and let me die.
Right. It could have been either one, and indeed, it seems to be either one in different versions.
Okay, that's why I got confused when I saw that there rust. I'm like, rust?
Well,
Like, I thought it might have been rest. And then I was like, maybe I was just
they
thinking
had nothing but carbon steel back then, and it rusted. There was no such thing as stainless steel. Okay, where be these enemies? Capulet, Montague, see what a scourge is laid upon your hate, but heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I, for winking at your discords too, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished, and here it's punished with apostrophe rather than punished. I like the Punished better. And then, of course, we've got the reconciliation at the end, a bit late, but here it comes. Oh, brother Montague, give me thy hand. This is my daughter's jointure, or no more can I command. Jointure, of course, the provision made for a widow. Montague, but I can give thee more, for I will raise her statue in pure gold, that will Verona by that name is known. That while Verona by that name is known, there shall no figure at such rate be set as that of true and faithful Juliet. Okay, poor sacrifices to our enmity. Beautiful. Okay, and then this prince's last line here is in many versions given to a chorus or narrator or somebody instead of the prince. And so, looming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned, some punished. Now here we have to say punished in order to make it rhyme with head.
Yeah.
Some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Okay, all kinds of other things we could address in here, which are so commonly talked about. What are the relationships between Mercutio and Romeo? The relationship, the characters of Mercutio and Tybalt, and Shakespeare is suspected, for example, of killing off Mercutio for fear that his presence would overwhelm the primary plot of Romeo and Juliet themselves. That's utterly absurd to me, but that's one of the arguments that's often given. The nature of the nurse herself and her background and motivations. It's interesting. She has a lot of lines, and she's a rather silly woman when you think about it. Any thoughts? Any questions?
It really is a tragedy. When I watched it, everyone knows the story, but you gotta feel so bad for it. If only these certain things wouldn't happen, and if certain things would have happened, it would have turned out fine.
It's terribly moving, isn't it? Even though you know that Shakespeare only had a bad translation of this Italian text, and then he fleshed it out so beautifully with this poetry all the way through, and it's been interpreted so many times by so many people in so many different ways. The one interpretation which I found really fascinating myself, but I don't recommend, is the Baz Luhrmann version. Anyone seen that one? Yeah, I don't recommend it because I'll get myself in trouble. It's full of all kinds of other weird things, but that's the one with starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, I think.
Oh, is that the one in modern time?
It's it's not necessarily in modern times. It's in a theoretical time that never existed.
It was a little. I saw parts of it. It was a little
our dad
strange.
turned it on once.
They changed a few stuff, and I just remember it's so weird because they look, they're dressed like in modern clothes and stuff, but then they're speaking in very old English. It just it's very strange.
That in itself is somewhat disconcerting, and they're not.
Yeah, it is very distracting when you're watching it because you don't.
But I mean, it doesn't really hurt it in a way because I mean, after all, the way we're pronouncing these words from the 16th and 17th century is not the way they pronounce them anyway. We're not being terribly accurate there. So why not assume that in some theoretical existence, in this case, Verona Beach is where they decided to make it take place, and you've got the ocean there, in which is a society in which everyone is carrying automatic pistols, which are justified in the text by the fact that you see a close-up of one of them, and it has the brand name Sword on it. So that sort of justifies if you're going to talk about, you know, the sword. It's weird. It's really weird. It's got a lot of drug usage. It's got a lot of transvestitism in it. It's got a bunch of things that aren't really appropriate in a high school class. But it has the fundamental story is there, and the words in many ways are more intact than they are, for example, in the more recent Carlo Carle version.
I just remember seeing, like, while I was watching, or when Dad was like watching, and I came in. It's like at the ending, I started with him saying like, "Oh, Malthazar, how fares my lady Juliet?" Then we like just watched it to the end.
Well,
We
there's
were
an
just
awful
like,
lot of candles in that scene. Okay, let's wind things up and figure out where we're going to go next. Let's see what else we have here in our agenda. Let's see, lower priority assignments. I just threw that one in. It's great language immersion if you feel like it. And then I have the older assignments, which I'm assuming everyone has already done. So let's just leave those. And back to the beginning here. Connor, right?
Yes.
Did a recitation. Did you have one planned? I'm sorry. I hope
oh,
I
my
didn't.
one was gonna be the one I did.
Oh, okay. Which one was that?
The friar speaking to Juliet.
But you did the friar speaking.
No, I did the one with
Friar speaking to
Romeo.
That's right. That's right.
That's your
Okay.
one.
Okay. Wonderful. No, that's fine. Did you come with one?
No.
Okay. It's sort of nice to do the recitations, and I would like to do a little bit of recitation every week if possible. Reading perhaps your own writing as well, because this connection between oral presentation and putting something on paper, I think, is so important. Those people who use the language differently when they speak it than when they write it have so much more difficulty writing, because they have to shift into another mindset in order to produce the words the way they should appear on paper.
That's why it can help when you say, if you want to go over your paper to proofread it, if you were to say it out loud, it would actually help.
Exactly.
It helps a lot.
Not only that, but if we were, for example, to take some beautiful prose, I mean, you can't do better than Shakespeare, but let's assume that we can find modern written language, which is superb. There's plenty of that, and I will share it with you. And recite it. Get that in your ears. Start out, for example, a debate by reciting something that is well scripted, and then see if you can't stay in that mode as you're continuing to debate and answer questions from your opponent. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can try to do that. So I'd like to plan a little bit of oratory for each class, either bringing something that you think is particularly worthy of emulation, or your own writing, if you feel that it comes up to that level, and recite it, make it flow the way we've been doing with Shakespeare here.
I think they'll just take too long for mine, because mine's like a lot of words.
Find a section, find a part.
The next section, or you can read chapter 2 because you're posting that.
That's too long. It's like 8 pages long.
Now, I'm sorry, Dawson, I didn't get to going over yours here. We ended up jumping into other things. Did you read the commentary on what I said? Does it make sense to you? Do you have any questions about it?
Yeah, it does. No.
Okay, what I gave you credit for what you did there, which is fine. I think you've got a fine premise, and the execution could be more polished, and I think it could be fleshed out and expanded upon. And I think what you've got there could very well be an excellent essay, but let's do another version of it and update it a little bit for next time.
Okay.
And if you have any questions at all, let me know. One of the things, as I suggested, was let's compare its word count to the word count of the ones that have really pass muster and see how it compares in that respect, and see if we can't expand the body of it to bring in, for example, a few little asides about the other works that you mentioned, and how the one you chose, the Sun Tzu work, really sort of supersedes them and provides you with that model that you would like to follow, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Super. Okay, reading for next week. I don't know if we want to go on and do another Shakespeare. There are a lot of other things besides Shakespeare that we could.
What about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
By all means, let's jump into Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a different kind of language. It's intensely humorous. I think he does such an incredible job.
There's this one line he said, something about spaceships, right? He said the spaceships hang off the sky in the way that bricks don't.
Right. The spaceships were hanging in the sky exactly the way that bricks don't. The use of absence of something as presence is one of a number of devices that Adams uses consistently, but he doesn't overuse any of these. I put together a little list of comic devices that Adams uses. They're delicious, but he uses them sparingly and he uses them appropriately. And so let's look at those perhaps a little bit also. We have in the classroom, I believe, a link to the radio play.
Yeah, but it's a fan-made one.
Is it a fan-made one?
Yeah, it said so, I think, in the description, but still very nice.
Okay, I think I may have another one in there. I'll look around and see what I can find.
Okay.
Because, yeah, there is a fan-made one that's very good, but because the original one disappeared, but I think I can find it. The radio play was the first version, and I think it's really one of the best. And it has a lot of plot in it that none of the others have. So let's see if we can do that. Let's go at it in all the different directions. The book and the audiobook and the play. I'll see what I can find and provide links for you. Do you have the actual books themselves?
No.
Yeah.
You do.
But you have the book, or just the first one, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think, on Abacus. So I just read it.
Yeah, I'm sure I found a link to it. Anything that's that popular, you can count on somebody, probably in Russia or India, having stuck it online. And so it's out there somewhere. We'll see what we do. Okay, so we will go in that direction, and I will add some other things as they occur. By all means, write something on Romeo and Juliet. There are many possible directions one can do that. Compare the characters of Romeo and Mercutio. Look at the role that light plays. Light is mentioned very often in the bright sunny days when everybody is angry at each other, and at night when everything seems like a dream. These are described in the language, so that sort of thing. Feel free to do that, but I'm not going to specifically assign it. If you want a specific assignment, I'll come up with one. Otherwise, I'd rather you came up with what appealed to you. Okay?
Right.
Okay, let's bring things to a close here. Signing off.